Well, Katie, let's start, I guess, just with how you feel. It has, I'm sure, been a grind, and now we are in the home stretch. The ballots are out. Obviously, they're due now in a few weeks. Where are you at? How do you feel?
Feeling good. It feels like we have momentum. There's so much enthusiasm around this campaign. 2 weeks to go, so just hope that voters are filling in those bubbles and turning their ballots in.
Is there anything about this race? Well, I'm sure there are. What about this race has surprised you or maybe popped up throughout the process that wasn't expected as you kind of reflect on your time in this race?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a wild ride. I certainly was not expecting to come out of the primary with 51% of the vote in an 8-way race. And I mean, really just I feel this big sense of responsibility. If I win this race, so many people have put their kind of hopes and dreams into this campaign. And I really feel that we have this vision for the city that so many people believe in. And I'm so excited about the idea of making progress toward that affordable city where we can all thrive, and I think there's just a lot of hope there.
What does that mean as you said, the sense of responsibility, just given kind of that connection maybe that you felt with some of those voters?
Absolutely. I mean, this has been such a people-powered campaign, and I'm a transit rider. I'm out there every day, often with my young daughter, riding the bus, riding the train, or walking down the sidewalk, and it's a very strange experience for me to be recognized by people and for people to come up enthusiastically and say, "Oh, I can't wait to vote for you." And it's very I feel honored, but yeah, there is that sense of responsibility. And and it's really, we've been funding this campaign with democracy vouchers. Definitely was not expecting to have, social media videos go viral. So that kind of aspect of being recognized and out in public is definitely a new thing for me as someone who's, done a ton of work over the years, but I've always been a little bit in the background. And so being kind of the public face is definitely a new experience.
You had mentioned affordable city. That's been one of the big talking points for you, is affordability, kind of across the board. But what does an affordable city look like? What does it mean to you?
To me, it means, an affordable city is one where, as a young person, you can envision building a life, right? You can envision having children, you can envision buying a home or renting a home and having that be a stable living situation. And I just watched too many young families with children move out of Seattle because they cannot afford to live here. They can't envision buying a house. They can't envision paying for childcare. If I'm elected mayor, I'm going to tackle the affordability crisis with everything I've got, because we just can't have a vibrant city if people can't afford to live here, who are, the people who are working in our grocery stores, the people who are working in our cafes. You should be able to work a low-wage job in Seattle and have a stable life here.
What's gone wrong in that department?
I think that over the last 20 years or so, as our city and our region have grown rapidly, people have moved here to work in the tech sector. And, one of the big elements is that our housing has not expanded to match that growing population. And that has really sent housing prices up, that has sent rents up. And that has, been the driver of our worsening homelessness crisis. And so part of this is that we do need to allow much more housing to be built in our great neighborhoods around the city. And we also need more public investment in housing, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm a really strong supporter of social housing, which Seattle voters have now twice overwhelmingly told us they want the city to invest in.
One of the knocks on anything, whether it be social housing, is the cost. And obviously when it comes to things like taxes, there are opportunities for the voters to have a voice in that, whether it be passing certain, voicing their support for tax increases. How do we pay for some of these things that obviously require investment?
Yeah. Well, in the case of social housing, we now have an ongoing funding source, which was overwhelmingly approved by the voters this February, right? Which will be a tax on wealthy corporations, expected to bring in around $50 million a year. So that will be the funding source for our social housing developer. And I really think that the mayor's office and City Hall needs to be a strong partner with that developer in identifying sites which are appropriate for building social housing or buildings for acquisition, potentially in using the city's bonding capacity. So there are a lot of ways that I think the city can really be that strong partner that makes sure that we are getting that social housing developer off to the best possible start.
You talked about your background, obviously, with the Transit Riders Union and kind of being behind the scenes. And you've mentioned in a few debates that while you haven't held elected office, you've been involved in political issues. Let's talk about that, kind of the balance of what is inexperience when it comes to elected office, but as you've put it, experience kind of in that realm. So what some may call a weakness, you've mentioned that, it's there is some experience there. I'll have you elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people come into the mayor's office from all different directions. And, in my case, I've been working in and around City Hall for 14 years, right? Even though I haven't held elected office, I've been there pushing legislation through City Council. I've been there working with departments as programs are designed or policies are implemented. And so I've really had that window into City Hall, how it works, how it often doesn't work very well for people. And so, as I'm building my administration, obviously I'm going to be looking to bring people in with me who have different kinds of experience than I do, right? Who have that deep experience working in the executive branch, who have extensive management experience, right? So it's really about assembling that team and making sure that you're bringing people in with you whose experience complements your own. And, in a lot of ways, I think that the kind of experience that I've built up over the years puts me in a better position for a role like this than if I was off managing a Fortune 500 company, right? Because the relationships that I've built up and knowing that landscape, right? Knowing not just City Hall and kind of the county, but the nonprofit sector and the advocacy community, right? Knowing that landscape is going to be very, very valuable, both as I build the administration, but also assembling those coalitions that are going to be able to get good things done in our city. As soon as we came out of the primary with 51%, we began thinking very seriously about that transition process and about assembling an administration. So I've been working with a small team of folks who are not currently in City Hall, but who have had deep City Hall experience. And we've been examining the last 4 or 5 administrations and beginning to map out, basically looking at what's worked well, what hasn't worked well in terms of the structure of the mayor's office and the relationship between the mayor's office and the department heads. And so we've been kind of mapping out that structure, and I'm really excited about that. I think we've got a really strong plan in mind, and we're starting to vet candidates for some of those top positions.
Let's talk campaign finance. When you look at contributions to the two candidates, much closer in terms of money, but when you look at the fundraising through PACs, there's a big disparity. And really after the primary, Mayor Harrell started to see those contributions go up. I've asked you about this in the past. What are your thoughts on that and the money that's especially down the stretch that's being poured into this race?
Yeah, well, our campaign is people-powered, and I think it's clear that the Political Action Committee, the PAC for our opponent, Bruce Harrell, is very much big money-driven, right? So there's a lot of large contributions from billionaires, from big business, from big landlord and realtor interests. And, I think it's clear that they're a little bit afraid that I'm going to be effective at putting forward some of the policies that I think are going to be very good for the working people of this city, but might ask them to contribute a little bit more to the common good.
There's been, obviously, on the same note, when it comes to money, a little bit more advertisement, mailings. At times, I guess you could probably describe them as attack ads. Your thoughts on that, and maybe one of those things you probably didn't even envision when you first started this process, but to see that, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to be prepared for $1 million+ being spent attacking you. So it always, I think, when it happens, it feels a certain way. I've just been trying to kind of let it roll off my back. There was a mailer that went out with a resume of mine from 2015, 10 years ago. So they're playing a little dirty. But I think that Seattle voters are smart, and I think that they're going to see through those attack ads, and and I think that they're going to realize that the interests behind them do not necessarily have the interests of the city at heart.
What would be your message here down the stretch to voters?
Yeah. Seattle is a great city. And we have a lot of kind of gnarly problems to solve, but I really believe that if we come together, we can make progress, right? We can make progress toward making Seattle into a city where you do not need a six-figure income to feel at home. We can meaningfully address our homelessness crisis, which has been getting worse year on year for about as long as I've been here paying attention. I'm really hopeful, right? The 7 months of this campaign, talking to voters around the city, talking to residents, talking to small business owners, I really believe that we can make some transformational change together. So get that ballot in the mail, or even better, to a drop box. I know there's been some fear around the federal shutdown and what that's going to do to post office operations. So the more people can get their ballots into the drop boxes, the better.